Welcome back, deep divers. Today, we've got a story. And you know how I love a good story. This one is unbelievable, seriously.
Right.
It's about a guy, Jose Salvador Alvarenga, who survived over a year, adrift, in the Pacific Ocean.
For a year.
Over a year. And the Pacific, I mean, come on, that thing's huge. Seriously huge. Did you know it's so big all the land of the world could fit in it? With room to spare. That's how big we're talking.
Wow, okay. That really puts things in perspective.
Right. So picture this, Jose, stuck out there for 438 days on a tiny boat.
How tiny are we talking?
7 feet. Seriously, like smaller than some cars.
Way.
Way. And it wasn't like a luxury yacht or anything, no fancy gadgets, just an engine, a fridge for the fish, and that's it.
So how is that even possible?
That's what we're diving into today. But there's a twist. It's not just about surviving out there, it's about what happened when he got back.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So Jose, he was a fisherman, 36 years old, from Costa Azul in Mexico. And back on November 17th, 2012, he sets out on a fishing trip. Pretty routine stuff, about 75 miles off the coast with another guy.
Okay, so far so good. Nothing too crazy yet.
Right. But here's where things go sideways. A storm hits. And not just any storm, a monster storm.
Oh.
And they tried to outrun it, but their engine, it just gives out. And get this, they were only like 12 miles from shore when it happened.
So close.
Right, can you imagine? That close to safety and then nothing.
I bet they were freaking out.
Well, they did have a radio, and they managed to call their boss back on land. But then, the battery died. Poof, connection gone.
Just like that, their lifeline's cut. Yikes.
And to make matters worse, those Pacific currents, they're strong. They swept Jose and his buddy hundreds of miles off course.
Hundreds.
Within 5 days, over 280 miles from shore, lost in the middle of nowhere. No radio, no flares, food running low. The situation's getting pretty dire.
Okay, so this routine fishing trip is turning into a fight for survival. How did they even stay alive?
They had to get creative, start catching birds, using anything they could to catch them. Think about that. You're so hungry, you're eating raw birds.
I can't even imagine. Talk about resourcefulness.
It's incredible, right? But it couldn't have just been the physical challenges. Being out there like that, the mental strain must have been immense.
Oh, absolutely. And tragically, after 4 months, Jose's companion, he couldn't take it anymore. The conditions, they just got to be too much.
Man, that's heartbreaking. To lose your only companion out there, to be completely alone, I can't even fathom it.
It must have been devastating. But even in all that darkness, there was a glimmer of hope. About 6 months in, Jose spots a cargo ship in the distance.
Wow, a sign of civilization. Did they see him?
Sadly, no. It just kept going completely unaware.
Oh man, that must have been crushing.
It must have been, but even that brief sighting, it must have given him a boost, a reason to keep fighting.
It's amazing how even the smallest bit of hope can make a difference.
It really is. But the question is, how long can you hold on to that hope? We're talking months here, right?
Months. By this point, he drifted thousands of miles. Think about it. From New York to LA and back. Twice. That's how far. Clothes in tatters, only a thin vest for protection.
It's mind-blowing that he was even alive at that point. But hold on. I thought he was found after 439 days.
That's right. And that's where things take a turn. For the better. Okay, so he's drifted for over a year, thousands of miles, right? What happened? Did he just keep drifting forever?
Well, there's that saying, where there's life, there's hope. And for Jose, that hope showed up after 439 days.
439 days. Wow, what happened?
He sees floating coconuts and birds circling.
Oh, man. I bet those were the best coconuts and birds he'd ever seen.
Right. And you know what those are a sign of?
Land. He found land.
You got it. Ebon Atoll. It's this tiny island, part of the Marshall Islands.
Marshall Islands, that's nowhere near Mexico.
Yeah, way out there in the middle of the Pacific. This chain of volcanic islands and coral atolls. Incredible, really.
It's a miracle he even spotted this tiny island in that vast ocean.
Talk about a needle in a haystack. But after over a year of nothing but water, can you imagine stepping onto solid ground again?
I can't even imagine. Must have been euphoric.
He said it was like being born again.
I bet. So he's finally safe. End of story.
Not quite. Remember, he's been through the ringer, right? Weak, sun-beaten, alone for over a year.
Right, of course.
He stumbles onto this remote island, and the locals, they find him. This stranger speaking a language they don't understand.
I bet they were wondering what in the world was going on.
I can only imagine. They took him in, cared for him, and eventually with a translator, they were able to figure out his story.
Thank goodness for translators. So they contacted the authorities. Did anyone believe him at first?
Even the police, they were skeptical at first. It does sound like a tall tale, right? A man surviving at sea for over a year.
Yeah, it sounds like something out of a movie.
Right. So, to confirm his identity, Jose called his former boss, the one he'd talked to on the radio before the battery died.
Huh. Can you imagine that phone call? Hey, boss, remember that fishing trip?
I bet the boss's jaw hit the floor. The news spread like wildfire. Jose, the lost fisherman, found alive.
It's the kind of story that captures everyone's imagination.
Huh.
So they flew him straight back to Mexico for a hero's welcome.
Hold your horses. He's in the Marshall Islands, remember? No visa. Thousands of miles from home.
Oh, right. Red tape. Bureaucracy.
It took weeks. Paperwork, transportation. Finally, he makes it back to Mexico.
And everyone's celebrating his return, right? Reunited with family?
Well, not exactly. Remember that twist we talked about? Well, here it comes.
Oh, what happened?
The family of his companion, the one who, well, didn't make it. They made a serious accusation.
What kind of accusation?
They claimed Jose survived by cannibalism.
Whoa, that's a heavy accusation.
It is, and it's important to note, it was never proven. Jose denied it vehemently.
And was there any evidence?
No, nothing concrete to support the claim.
So what happens in a case like that? A serious accusation with no proof.
Well, it led to a legal battle. Imagine going through this incredible ordeal, finally getting home, and then having to fight these awful accusations.
It just seems so unfair. So what was the outcome?
He was eventually cleared of all charges, but still, can you imagine the emotional toll that must have taken?
It's hard to fathom, really. What did Jose do after that, after everything he'd been through?
He wrote a book about it all, 438 days. It's his account of the whole experience, the ordeal at sea, and everything that followed.
It's hard to believe everything he went through, right? I mean, lost at sea, fighting to survive, then those accusations when he gets back. It's a lot.
It really is. It just shows you, though, how resilient humans can be. To face those conditions for that long, the thirst, the hunger, the storms, the loneliness, I mean, it's mind-boggling.
It really is. But I think what gets me the most is the mental part of it all. Being stuck out there surrounded by ocean for over a year. How do you stay sane? What keeps you going?
It's a great question. And in his book, Jose talks about holding on to hope, even when things were at their worst. He just had this belief, this deep down belief that he would be found, that he would see his family again, and that kept him going.
And remember, he did see that cargo ship, right?
Yeah.
Even though it didn't stop, that must have reinforced that hope. Like, hey, I'm not completely lost out here.
Exactly. Just that tiny bit of hope can make all the difference. It can fuel you, give you that strength to keep pushing forward. But this story, it brings up some other interesting questions too.
We're talking about the accusations, right?
Yeah. I mean, even though nothing was ever proven, you can't just ignore that part of it.
It's true.
It makes you think about what people might do in those extreme situations, the choices they might make when it's a matter of survival. It's complicated.
It really is. It makes you wonder, if you were in Jose's shoes, adrift and alone, how would you handle it?
It's a good question to ask yourself. How would you stay sane?
Exactly. It's a testament to the human spirit, I think, to be able to come back from something like that.
There really is.
It also shows how unpredictable life can be.
Yeah.
1 minute you're on a fishing trip, the next you're on this unbelievable journey across the Pacific.
Absolutely. You really never know what life's going to throw at you. And it reminds you how powerful nature is.
That's for sure.
And, it highlights how important it is to be prepared, to think about safety, especially out on the ocean. Jose's boat, it didn't have the right equipment, and that put him in a tough spot from the beginning.
That's a good point. Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into Jose's story, I think I'm left with this one question. What would you do? How would you stay afloat, both literally and figuratively, if you were in his position?
That's a powerful thought to live with, for sure.
Jose's story, it's a story of survival, of resilience, and of never giving up hope, even when things seem impossible.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those depths a little bit. Until next time, deep divers, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.